Hey guys, welcome back. If you're planning on growing brassicas this season, then this is the video for you. Today I'm going through my ultimate brassica growing guide and showing you how you can double your harvest this season. But before we get started, if you're new here, hi guys, my name is Marcia and I'm the Blackthumbgardener and I live in Ontario, Canada, Zone 5B, and welcome to my channel. If you're new here, I'd love for you to subscribe, and if you're returning, welcome back and thank you so much for supporting my channel. Now let's get started. So what's actually in the Brassica family? Now this genus includes plants like arugula, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cabbage, cauliflower, collards, kale, kohlrabi, and turnips and radishes, to name a few. These are generally cool season plants that do really well in the spring or the fall. So I'm growing in zone 5, where spring usually lasts about 5 minutes before the summer heat kicks in, and timing is our biggest hurdle in this zone. Now you can't plant too early because the ground is frozen, and if you plant too late, then your plants will bolt in the summer heat. I usually start my seeds indoors about 7 to 8 weeks before my last frost. My last frost is May 5th, so getting them started today places me perfectly within that time frame. If I start now, then I'll have big enough plants to transplant into the garden in early spring. Each year I plant my brassicas into the garden around early to mid-April, as long as the soil temperatures are at least 10 degrees Celsius or 50 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, this is where having a soil thermometer comes in really handy to help determine whether the conditions are ideal for your plants. Now, to truly double your yield, I usually start a second round of brassicas in early to mid-July and get it transplanted into the garden in early August. This is when the summer plants start to fizzle out, and then your brassicas will be thriving in the cooler air. Now, in terms of harvest times, I usually get my first round of brassicas from the garden in late June, and then my second round of brassicas from my fall garden are harvested in October. Now, sometimes things don't go as expected, and last year life got busy and I got my brassicas into the garden in late August, and as a result, I didn't even get a harvest until mid-November. These guys went through several rounds of frost and snow, and brassicas are very resilient. They survived all of that, and I still got a harvest at the end of the season. So if you want to see that last harvest of 2025, I'll link it in the description below. As you can see from my example, you really should be getting your brassicas into the garden in early August if you want to guarantee that fall harvest. Now, if you're living in a warmer zone like my sister is in Florida, then March is already too late to get your brassicas started. In deep southern zones, spring gardening actually starts in late fall or winter, so you want to get your brassicas started in October or November so that you get a harvest in January and February while it's still cool outside. Now, if you want a second round of planting, you can start your seeds again in January and still get a harvest by March and April before the heat and humidity kicks in. So one thing you should know is that brassicas are heavy feeders, so while I'm growing them indoors, I usually give them a dose of fish fertilizer, and then once I get them into the garden, I usually amend the soil with worm castings, compost, and then I add a little bit of granular fertilizer, and that usually gets them through to the end of the season. When it comes to companion planting, brassicas are great companion plants with strong smelling herbs like dill. Now, personally for me, I like to direct sow my dill into the garden when I'm planting my brassicas, but you can also plant your brassicas near other strong smelling herbs like sage, rosemary, mint, and chamomile, but you definitely want to keep them away from any member of the Solanum family. This includes plants like peppers, tomatoes, potatoes, and eggplant. I'll also intercrop my brassicas with onions in the hopes that it would deter pests. So speaking of pests, the one that you need to watch out for when you're growing brassicas is a cabbage worm. This one flutters around the garden as a beautiful white butterfly, and then it'll leave tiny yellow eggs on the underside of your leaves, and then when it does, it eats your plants. This one is completely devastating to your garden because it will destroy an entire crop. So to deal with this issue, what I use is a mesh cover, and this eliminates the need of having to spray chemicals. Now, last year I did an experiment by intercropping just a couple of my brassica plants into my allium bed. Now, I had an allium bed devoted to things like garlic, onions, leeks, and shallots. And I thought by intercropping just a couple of my brassica plants that it would deter the cabbage worms. And the answer to that is no, it did not deter them. They continued to lay eggs on my plants every single day, and I had to pick them by hand. I admit I got a bit lazy checking these brassicas every day, and I noticed this. And then I noticed this down here, stuck to the leaves. Look, Oh my gosh. Got you. Oh no! There it is. See that? I don't know if you can see that well, but yeah, that's a cabbage moth. You don't want this on your brassicas. So I'm going to have to check for eggs in the other brassicas in this bed. But yeah, this is a no-no. See that? Look at that. So if you want to prevent this from happening in your garden, just do yourself a favor and get a mesh cover. So if you guys have been watching the channel for some time, you know that I love my super hoop system, and that's how I apply the mesh cover to my raised beds. I use this in the spring and in the fall to grow my brassicas. Now the super hoop system, I bought it a long time ago from Vessi Seeds. They don't carry it anymore, unfortunately. But my mesh cover is available on my Amazon storefront in the description below. Now, last year I did try out a hoop and mesh system from Dollarama. It was only $5, which was really affordable. I really liked the product in early spring. The only challenge I had is as my brassicas grew, unfortunately that system didn't grow with it, so I ended up having to transition to my super hoop system in the end. However, if you're just looking to grow your seedlings to a nice, strong, healthy height, then definitely you can get that Dollarama system. And then after that, you can take off the mesh cover and just deal with, hand picking the eggs every day. It's totally fine if you want to hand pick it. I do that sometimes and it works fine. So if you're looking for an alternative solution in early spring, then definitely try out that $5 Dollarama system. Now, brassicas can also be attacked by root maggots, white flies, flea beetles, slugs and snails, and aphids. Actually, last year I had aphids in my grow room, and the first thing they went for were my brassicas. Now, in terms of diseases, the one that you might deal with the most is powdery mildew, especially if you plant your brassicas close together like I do, because I have a small space garden. Now, how I deal with this issue are in two ways. Number one, I tend to remove the bottom leaves of my plants, and that way it creates airflow throughout my bed. And number two, I tend to buy powdery mildew resistant varieties, and this helps to deal with that issue. Before we go through the varieties that I'm growing this year, I did mention before that I'm a West Coast Seeds brand ambassador this year, and I've been growing with their seeds for a very, very long time, especially when it comes to brassicas. Now, if you're interested in any of the seeds that I'll be sharing today, I'll have them linked below in the description for you to check out. Just a quick note, I do make a commission from each purchase that is made, which helps to go towards supporting this channel. So thank you in advance. Now let's see what I'm starting. Now let's start with broccoli. These guys are my tried and true favorites that I grow every single year. We're going to start off with gypsy broccoli. This one is one of my favorite broccoli varieties ever. And this one has your classic uniform head. It takes about 62 days to mature. And this one is also resistant to powdery mildew. The next one I love to grow is Asperbrock Broccolini. The flavor is sweet and gives you those long classic broccolini stems. Now this one takes about 50 days to mature, and I love harvesting and cooking this one with a steak dinner. So the last one on the list was new to me last year, but I love the flavor so much that I'm adding it to my garden this season. And that is Atlantis broccoli, or Atlantis broccoli. I keep mispronouncing it. Anyways, this is a cross between a broccoli and a kale plant. Who doesn't want that? You get the best of both worlds. This one takes about 60 to 80 days, however, to mature. I found in growing it last year, it took about 60-ish days. I was harvesting it when I harvested my gypsy broccoli. Let me know in the comments what your favorite broccoli variety is to grow. I'm always looking for new additions to my collection. Next on the list is cauliflower, and I find the success to growing cauliflower really stems in finding the right variety for you. Now, I personally like self-blanching varieties. That way they automatically cover their own heads themselves rather than me having to spend time in the garden covering their heads so they turn out the color that they're supposed to be. And I also love varieties that have short days to maturity, because usually cauliflower takes much longer than your broccoli. And I love my brassicas to hover around the 60-day maturity window. That way I'm clearing out an entire bed and moving on to something else. This year I'm growing two varieties of cauliflower. So the first one on the list is called Clarify. This takes about 65 days to maturity. and it's also self-blanching, which is very important. The second one on the list is a fun one for me, and this one is Purple Moon. Just look at the color, guys. So gorgeous. Now, this one is 62 days to maturity, and both of these will be ready by the time my broccoli plants are ready to harvest. Next on the list is something I'm really missing right now in the winter in my salads, and that is kale. Kale is a vitamin-packed hardy crop that is fairly easy to grow, and I am doing 2 varieties this year. First on the list is lacinato kale or dinosaur kale. This takes about 65 days to maturity. And the next one, guys, the next one on the list I started last year, and I will forever have it in my garden, and that is red boar kale. Guys, look at the color. The color in the garden. This plant is gorgeous. And on top of that, it's only 55 days to maturity. If you want something that's quick, fun to eat, and beautiful in the garden, definitely try red boar kale. The next one on the list takes a very long time to grow, and I know I love my brassicas in that 60-day window, but this just completely obliterates that, and that is Brussels sprouts. Guys, Brussels sprouts usually take over 100 days to grow, and I have yet to find a variety that fits in my nice little 60-day window. This year I'm growing Nautic, which is 120 days. I will forever be growing this, but I love roasting Brussels sprouts, guys, and this one is a must grow in my garden. Okay, guys, next on the list are cabbages, and I have to admit that we are not big cabbage eaters in this house, so I don't tend to grow your big classic cabbage varieties in my garden, and I also don't have space for it. So what I will grow this year is wawasai, and this is a Napa cabbage. Last year I grew this and I made kimchi with it, so I'm hoping to do the same this year. This also fits in the days to maturity of my 60-day window, so this fits in well with my selection this year. It's, wawasai, it's a sui choi, but it's a Napa cabbage. Now, I do want to mention here that while I predominantly grow in raised beds, the same tips apply to growing in containers. In the past, I've grown brassicas in felt grow bags, and recently I've been using my green stalk planter to grow a lot of my brassicas. So all of the tips that I'm mentioning today apply to that as well. Last year, I did grow a cabbage variety called, this one is Baby Cabbage Pixie from Renee's Garden. I really like this one. I may tuck it in this year, but I'm really trying to save space for things that I know that we're definitely going to eat. This was tasty. The only problem is I ended up having to freeze a lot of it. So again, I really try to focus on growing things that I do eat. But if you're in a small space and you're looking for a smaller size cabbage, you might want to try this variety. Lastly, for radishes, which is part of the Brassica family, I love French breakfast. That's the variety I've been growing for years, and I absolutely love eating in salads. Now, I will be direct sowing that into the garden in early spring, so stay tuned for that. So that's it for the varieties I'm growing this year, guys. I cannot wait to get my brassicas out into the garden. I did not forget about other classic varieties like collards, kohlrabi, and turnips. It's just not something my family eats, so I haven't really mentioned it in this brassica guide today. But let me know in the comments if this guide was helpful to you. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.